I've been traveling, as I imagine most of you have, for, probably my whole adult life. My parents were into road trips. My parents were always into going places and doing things and traveling. And so I would say I've been traveling for 30 years and I've been taking pictures for 30 years. And so photography and going places kind of go together. But for me, the challenge is like when you go to a new location, the chance that you're going to pull up to some place you've never been, pull out your camera, and take an award-winning photograph
Not
never
award.
happens. And I think in 30 years it may have happened once to me where I just rocked up to a great sunset. But and so what I've developed is kind of my methodology and using some tools, and that's what we're going to walk through tonight in the presentation. So kind of a couple of my favorite quotes here. Louis Pasteur, right? Chance favors the prepared mind. And the trick here is nothing that I'm going to show you is going to guarantee success. But you can get a lot smarter and you can prepare yourself for, making an opportunity happen when you get there. That's what the method, if you will, the stuff we're going to talk about covers. So the question is, or the premise that I start with is that you're going to go someplace you've never been or someplace new to you. And the question that needs to be answered is, how do you get smart about taking the best photographs while you're there? And I think a lot of you know I still am an engineer. I don't think I ever lose that title, but I worked in the tech industry for 37 years, and the term we use in the tech industry is domain knowledge. And the question is, how do you get domain knowledge about the location, where you're headed to optimize your chance of getting a better photograph? And domain knowledge, in the tech industry, if you're developing software for the accounting department, you probably want to have somebody from the accounting team join you on your team. And that's really what it means. You want somebody that has the expertise on your team. Usually the software programmers kind of don't know what they're doing, especially about something like accounting, if you will. Okay. We know this term through other, right, local knowledge. Accumulate, the person who's lived in the area forever. And kind of my quick example of domain knowledge is Stern Lake, right? Most of us know that if you want a picture of a wood duck with a colorful background, you know to go to Stern Lake, you know to go in the fall, and you know to go in the morning because the sun reflects off the tree onto the water, and then you can get some wonderful pictures of some wood ducks. And that is just a quick example of domain knowledge. I'm going to turn my light on here. Hold on. Hopefully I'm not in shadow. And the question is, how do you get that? So you can purchase it, right? You can decide to go on a tour, a guide, a workshop. Gary talked a lot about that last month. And reasons that he prefers or enjoys going on tours and guides and workshops, and that's great, right? But if you can also self-learn it, and in some cases there might not be a tour or a guide or a workshop to kind of take you there. But time-honored tradition is you can hire a person who has that domain knowledge or that local knowledge that you want to exploit, and there's a lot of activities there. I'm going to focus more on the self-learn part, and even if you are taking a tour and a guide and workshop, some of the stuff I'm going to show you is going to have applicability. So it kind of starts basic research. Again, we talked about this last month, right? what I was reflecting on today is there is so much information available to you and to us today that we didn't have 5, 10, even 15 years ago, that makes it so easy to learn about places to go. And so I really start with just general searches. One kind of hidden gem that makes this easy that a lot of people don't talk about is Pinterest. It's not talked about in terms of like the big social media platforms anymore. I don't hear it, but there's a ton of travel related blogs that will advertise themselves there. And so I just got back off a 23-day road trip and we were in Taos as part of that. And so I just pulled up a couple shots, but the one in the upper right is the top 10 things to do in Taos, for instance. Right. So if you happen to be going to Taos, New Mexico, you can get plenty of information. One piece of advice or whatever is broaden your search. I had an event, I think this was 2014, maybe 2015. I was in Jackson, Wyoming. We were on our way to Yellowstone, and when we go to Yellowstone, we typically go to Jackson for a couple of days and shoot the Tetons. And what I missed was that they had like a centennial celebration 3 days after we left. And I almost drove back out of Yellowstone because they were putting fireworks up in front of the Grand Teton Mountain.
Mm.
And so I really encourage, don't just think about the days you're there, but think a little bit broader about what might be happening in the local area when you do this kind of search. Kind of the same thing we do around here in front of Pikes Peak at New Year's. So that was kind of a missed opportunity. Instagram is great. Flickr is still great. Google search, just a straight Google search, and then click on images versus search results, and you will see things about the area that you're going to. But basic research, not really the focus of tonight, but that's where it starts. I'll give you an example of domain knowledge. Interestingly, I crafted this before I left on my trip. And this example is coming out of Baltimore. I lived in Maryland for 30 years and took a lot of pictures of Baltimore. Of course, Baltimore has been in the news lately, and the bridge that the boat or the ship struck, it would be in the lower right corner, about 3 inches off of this map. This happens to be a map of Baltimore's what they call the Inner Harbor for anybody who's been down in that location. But to give a little more example of what I'm talking about, domain knowledge is after living in the area for a couple of decades and having extensively taken pictures in the city of Baltimore, if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Eric, I want to take a picture of the skyline of Baltimore, where would I go? And do you have any advice?" And my answer would be, yes, actually, I do. The skyline of Baltimore, in Eric's opinion, is best photographed in the month of November, December, and January. And it's not a great picture throughout the rest of the year. Can you take the picture? Yes, but if you really want to get a good picture of the skyline, my recommendation is to go November, December, and January. And so let's talk about that a little bit. So this is the Inner Harbor down here. And if I look at the orientation of the city, it doesn't come out on the map so much, but the main set of buildings that form the skyline kind of go along this line here. And then there's a body of water. And then on the lower side here where the camera is a place called Federal Hill. And Federal Hill and Rash Field down below and the promenade is a wonderful place to capture the skyline of Baltimore. And so a little bit of map work can help you though, and we'll talk about this in a bit, how to figure out kind of where the sight line is. But one thing that happens, and so why is it that November and December and January are my recommendations? And it has to do with where the sun sets on the horizon. And so October-ish through February, sunset hits in front of the skyline. And if we all know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but it doesn't cross it moves on the horizon as the seasons move. And October through February, it's in front of the skyline, and February through October, it's kind of behind the skyline. And so how does this affect your picture? Well, if you get it in November, you get shots that look like this, right? So this is an evening shot of the skyline. And what you get is this nice, warm, kind of raking light that hits the buildings, but it's from in front of the buildings versus it's from behind the buildings. And then if you wait long enough for the evening to develop, then you can get the full skyline picture here. And this is what it looks like shooting down from the promenade across the water and into the skyline. And this is domain knowledge, right? This is me developing this kind of knowledge over years and being in the city and knowing when to take the picture. Now, there's another piece of domain knowledge in this picture that is a little subtle. And if you, hopefully you can see it through the zoom, but this building that's over here that I'm kind of highlighting has this white superstructure on the top, and there's a little band of purple here, and there's other purple throughout this whole picture. So this image was actually shot in January. And because there's purple showing, I can tell you that the Ravens were in the playoffs, because that's what Baltimore does. Increasingly, as the NFL playoffs go on, the local NFL team, the Ravens, Baltimore shows its support by turning on more and more purple lights. And the deeper they go into the playoffs, the more the skyline turns purple in support. So it's kind of a fun thing to go take those pictures there. But again, if somebody wanted to have a unique picture of the skyline, I would say, well, then wait till January and cross your fingers that the Ravens were doing well in the playoffs. I'll also highlight that Baltimore is a very fickle town, because within 24 hours of the Ravens losing in the playoffs, all the purple lights are turned off. So their support is not long-lived. Okay. So my challenge is you can point a camera at most anything and press a shutter button and you're going to get a picture. And I call that a capture. That's my word for it. An image, a capture, a frame. But a photograph to me is something that tells a story and highlights a scene, right? And so when I'm thinking about that picture of Baltimore and I'm thinking about that skyline, I want that warm raking light that makes such a better picture. It starts to become a photograph in my mind, right? So there's basic questions that I start to ask about how do I get a picture of, right? When is the best time to go to take a picture of a location? What is the best angle? Where do I want to stand? Where's the sun going to be? And I start asking these kind of basic questions. And I think all of us have done this, but maybe you haven't thought about it as structured as this, right? You know that some places are better at sunrise and some places are better at sunset, things like that. I put a little more formality to it, and especially when I'm traveling, to kind of make my plans for my travel. And I don't know about you, but it usually takes me being in a place several times before I think of the picture that I want to take, that the photograph that I want to make at a location. I need to absorb the place, and I need to kind of see the angles and kind of form the picture in my mind that I then want to take. And sometimes that means I need to come back 2 or 3 times. And so if I'm traveling someplace, if I'm paying to be there and it's 100 miles or 1,000 miles away from home, my question is, how do I shorten that so I don't have to go back 2 or 3 times? Maybe I can increase my odds of getting the picture while I'm there. So here's my workflow. And here's the tools that I use to do this, right? So accelerating domain knowledge, right? How do you get this? So we talked a little bit about basic research. And then I'm going to highlight 4 tools, and I'm going to show you 2 of them kind of in depth. The first tool that I use is Google Earth. And you can use Google Earth through a web browser. And I don't recommend that. I actually recommend, if you haven't got it yet, is to go get what's called Google Earth Pro. And that's an actual application that you can put on your laptop and on your desktop, and it runs both on Windows and on Mac, and it's 100% free. And I can't say enough about this tool. I mean, this is just a fantastic capability. So if you haven't used it, if you have, I'm hoping people have used it. I'm going to actually show you some of the things you can do with it, right? But I use Google Earth a lot to understand the terrain, find places where I think I want to be to take pictures, figure out what my sight lines are to the scene that I want to create in my mind. But Google Earth is my research tool. It's what I use when I'm at home on my desktop. I don't use it on the iPad. I don't use it on my phone, although it does work there. But I really recommend the Google Earth Pro application version, not the web version for it. And then the second tool that I use is called Gaia GPS. And what hopefully people appreciate, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but all smartphones, whether they're Android or Apple, iPads as well, pretty sure the Android tablets all have GPS chips inside them. This is how the mapping function, if you've ever used Google Maps or Apple Maps, they all have a GPS chip in them. GPS is the Global Positioning Satellite System developed for the military, so the military knows where they are on the battlefield. And we as consumers use this every single day to locate ourselves on the Earth. So Gaia is a software application that runs on your phone, Android or Apple, runs on an iPad, and it runs, or you can access your account through a web interface. And so Gaia for me is a little bit of a planning tool because they have some really cool features in there, but it's more of my execution tool. It's more of my in the field mapping tool. And it does not require a connection to the cell towers or the cellular network that supplies your phone with data. So your phone, when you're running Gaia, can be a completely independent GPS receiver that will track you any place on Earth. And around here, you can very quickly get out of cell coverage range. Gaia
Yeah, a
will
little bit be
still
great.
find you, or still allow you to have maps. And it's funny, on my last trip, we visited a couple national parks. They offered us maps, and I don't even take the paper maps anymore because effectively I have all the maps on my phone, in my pocket, and it really allows me to do some execution, and I'll show you some of that as we go through here. It also is free at a base level. I pay for premium service. I like it so much, I bought the 5-year plan, and I will buy the 5-year plan again. It's just a very, very, very valuable software application. The other photo application that I'll touch on is PhotoPills. It has one version of it. I started with what's called TPE, which stands for the Photographer's Ephemeris, and but that's hard to say, so everybody calls it TPE. And this will give you sunrise, sunset information, and sun location and moon location kind of information. So I'll show you that in a little bit. And then I round all of this out with, I live in the Apple ecosystem, and so I rely heavily on Apple Notes as my information repository, if you will. If you are not in the Apple ecosystem, Evernote, Obsidian, there's a number of these kind of knowledge capture applications that are available. And so as a traveler, when I started traveling 30 years ago, I had notebooks and pieces of paper and things to track, and now all of that goes into Apple Notes electronically. And I put everything in there: reservations, travel plans. My wife will research restaurants and museums and things like that. So we have a kind of a running list when we go on a trip, and it's all electronic and in there. And so this is kind of organized in the flow that I use. Google Earth is the basic researcher. Gaia GPS is the execution, and then Apple Notes is the repository. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about sightlines. So in 2007, before much of this capability, I had the opportunity to travel to Sydney, Australia for some work meetings. And I ended up with 2 weekends in Sydney, which was absolutely fantastic. And I thought this was a great example. This one I actually did with ink and paper. I actually printed maps and drew lines and figured things out. But if I think about going to Sydney, Australia, my thought was, what is it that I want to photograph? What is it that I want to see in the city of Sydney? And I identified 3 parts of the city, or 3 things that I thought would be great to photograph. Excuse me. The first was the Sydney Bridge. The second was the Opera House. And then the third was the quay. And the quay is where the ferry boats land in the heart of the city. And when you start to think about things that you want to photograph, like the Opera House, it's easy enough to find the Opera House on the map, and you can get some photographs there. But one of the things I was interested in was not just a photograph of the Opera House. I wanted a photograph of the Opera House with the bridge behind it. I wanted a photograph of the Opera House with the city skyline behind it. And you don't get that picture necessarily by going here to where the Opera House is, or going to the Sydney Bridge and visiting the actual physical bridge. So what you have to start thinking about is, where do you want to be to get the picture that you want to capture? And it turns out that in Sydney, out in the harbor, if you will, there's some spits of land, one of which is the Botanic Gardens. And so the trick is, where do I actually want to stand to get the object or the subject that I want in the view that I want. And to get the Opera House, you don't go to the Opera House, you go to the Botanic Gardens. And to get the picture of the Opera House with the city skyline and the quay behind it, you actually go out here to the lighthouse, or you go out here to where the Taronga Zoo is, the Sydney Zoo is, to get that picture across the water. And these are what, not quite 20, 17-year-old, 2007 pictures, right? With a Canon 40D with a whopping 10 megapixels. But this is the picture across the water of the Sydney Opera House with the city skyline behind it. And it turns out that the quay is on the other side where the ferries are coming in, and you can see the ferry boat here. But this was an engineered shot, as well as this, which was actually taken from the Botanic Garden. So as you're thinking about the things, you've done your research on Sydney, you've decided the subjects that you want to take a picture of. Now you need to start thinking about, where should I be to actually get that image, and where should I stand? And that's where some of these tools and these mapping tools come in handy. Okay, when I mentioned it earlier in the Baltimore example, but as a photographer and as a landscape photographer, you start to recognize things, and you start to pay attention to things that maybe wouldn't cross the mind of most people. And one is where does the sun come up? And again, everybody kind of knows it comes up in the east and goes down in the west, but it doesn't come up at direct due east and go down at direct due west, because of the way the Earth moves and our inclination in the orbit and et cetera, right? The sun moves back and forth along the horizon, and that matters. When you think about where's the best time of the year, or where's the best location to take a picture. And so this is an example out of the application, the TPE application, snapshot off my phone. And I took this snapshot on the 4th of March as I was preparing this. And I simply told TPE to go to Denver. And so the little pin that hopefully you can see there is centered in downtown Denver. That's City Park, pretty much, is what it's pointed to. And TPE gives you sunrise, if the moon is setting or rising, a moonset, moonrise, sunset time. It also will give you when civil twilight and nautical twilight are over. This is effectively telling you the blue hour kind of time. And on this chart, these 4 lines, the kind of brighter yellow line here says, if you're in Denver on the 4th of March, the sun is going to come up at this angle on the horizon. And this would be important if I zoomed in and I wanted to see whether the sun was going to be in front of a building, as my Baltimore example, or behind a building. The darker orange is where sunset's going to happen. Right, and then if there's a moonrise and a moonset, those are in the blue and the gray as well. So you can tell where the moon's going to come up and where the moon's going to set from your location. So TPE is a good planning tool, but it's also a good in the field execution tool. So if I arrive at a place and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm wondering where's the sun going to hit the horizon, I can pull my phone out, pull TPE up, and it'll tell me that pretty direct. So what's interesting is just showing up sunrise and sunset, but I moved the date ahead to end of June of this year. And what you can see is how much the sun moves along the horizon. So in June, the sunrise has moved probably a good 20 degrees on the horizon, and the sunset has done a similar. So we're not talking about small variations here. If I was in March and the sun was in front, lighting up the front of a building, by June it's lighting up the back of the building, which could be something you want to pay attention to
Eric,
as you're planning this. Yes.
I have a question. Between TPE and photo pills, do you have a preference for one or the other?
Not really. I think this function in either one is pretty much the same. Photopill has like a dozen other things that it does. So if you were gonna buy an application, or I don't even remember anymore if I had to pay for TPE. I do remember having to pay for photopills, but photopills has this and other capabilities, where TPE is pretty much this.
Okay.
Eric, when you're standing with the phone, do you have to be facing like due north for it to tell you which way the line's going to go? Because depending which way you're facing with your phone, do those lines move?
Yes. Well, they don't move, but you have to orient yourself in the right way to get them to read where they're going to be on the landscape. Yes.
Is that based off a compass bearing then?
Well, it's based off the application will help you, and oftentimes, like I usually don't use it this far zoomed out. I will zoom it in to the point where I see the features on the landscape around me, like the building that I'm in front of if I'm doing this in a city, or the hill that I'm in front of when I'm in the field.
So then you're aiming the phone at the face of the building, and then that's going to show you where it would be.
Yeah. Very handy app. A new one for me that I just found a couple weeks ago is I was watching some videos on architecture photography, and the guy who was talking about those videos or whatever recommended this application called Sun Surveyor. And Light is the free version, and then you can pay if you want. But this will not only show you on the horizon where the sunrise and sunset is going to be, but it will show you the arc of the sun through the sky and where it will be in the sky during the middle of the day.
Hey, Eric.
Uh-huh.
We've used photopills quite a bit for the Milky Way, and I think it behaves the same way for moon and sun, but the alternate reality, the AR function on it,
Right.
you can basically play back any day in the future and see where you're standing, either whether you're there or not, and you can see the sun and the moon come through your sky.
Yes.
So you can very clearly, especially if you're standing on that spot, see where the sun's going to come right over or the moon's going to come right over with any day you put in it.
Yes. Yeah. Again, I mean, I don't want to say. What I'll say is the tools you have available today are just mind-bogglingly fantastic, and they're only getting better. But with that tool, you can predict when you want to be at a place because you want the moon to go down next to a mountain or whatever, right? Or you want the face of the building lit up, or so yes.
And if it's not clear, the AR part, instead of it being an arc like this, so you almost have to be an engineer to think in 3D space for this. But if you're standing out there where you're going to take the photo, or want to adjust where you take the photo, it'll put a moon or a sun on
Right
your
there.
horizon and walk it through your space.
Yeah.
That's way more visual than this version, this particular
Application.
rendition of it is, and they all do this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. So tools are available, right, to help you determine this. This is the combination of this and then some of the map planning tools, right, really let you see exactly what the potential would be and when to be at a certain location. So it's wonderful stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna shift back and I'm gonna give an example of Google Earth and Gaia GPS, my two favorite mapping applications. And I'm going to use Roxborough State Park as an example. This is the slide version. We're going to look at some similar things in a live environment, if you will, in a minute here. But I just wanted to get you oriented to what this kind of looks like and what can look like. So this is a screen snap out of Google Earth of Roxborough State Park. And I know many of us have been there. And right in the center here is the visitor center. And here's the entry road coming in where everybody parks, right? You go to the visitor center, and then there's the Fountain Valley Trail going off, okay? So Google Earth presents you with satellite imagery, commercial grade satellite imagery of what this looks like. So you're looking at a top-down view, probably 10 miles, as if you were 10 miles at altitude over Roxborough State Park. And I've oriented this map so north is pointing up. And what this tells me is, if you've been to Roxborough, right, you know you've got the kind of the rock formations and whatnot. But almost immediately by looking at this, I can tell that this is a sunrise versus a sunset location. That's my first interpretation. And already I can get an appreciation. If I've never been to Roxborough State Park, I drive in, I know where parking is. I know where the visitor center is, right? I'm already gaining domain knowledge by looking at this imagery and kind of getting myself educated about this location. Inside Google Earth, not only do you have the satellite view, but you have Street View, which doesn't exist everywhere, but exists in a lot of places. And so this is a capture directly out of Google Earth of what Street View looks like as you're kind of approaching the visitor center. And so here you're looking at an image as if you would be there, and you could say, well, I don't know, does this look like something I want to go photograph? And I haven't left my desktop at home to see this kind of an image. So we'll see these kinds of things, the satellite view and then the street view in Google Earth. Once I do my research, then when I go into, if you will, my execution mode, my actual I get there mode, then I'm going to pull up Gaia, which is going to give me a map that looks like this. And Gaia's maps are topographic maps. And they can be a little confusing, I think, until you get used to them. I was a Boy Scout. I've been looking at these things for like 30 years. So I got this. But I know it can be a little intimidating if you've not looked at a map like this before. The good news is this is a map, and it's going to show you where the roads are, right? So here's the same entry road. Here's the visitor center. Gaia is going to tell you that there's a bathroom at the visitor center, right? They're going to tell you there's a bathroom at the lower parking lot, which I think we all know, right? And, yellow is major roads, white is minor roads, dashed lines are trails. This is why I don't ask for a map anymore, a paper map anymore, because it's all in the application. And I can have this exact view on my phone in my pocket at any time I'm there. Now, what kind of changes this from a normal street map is these contours, these terrain lines, all these squiggly lines, right? And what these show you is the terrain that's around you. These are elevation contours, if you will. And I'm going to pop up another thing just to zoom in a little bit. So there's two thicknesses of lines, thins and thicks, if you will. And the thick lines are numbered, or elevation is noted. And in this case, this is the elevation contour for 6,200 feet in altitude. And then here's the contour for 6,400 feet in altitude. So the thick lines will give you actual elevation, and the elevation change between two thick lines is on this scale of map, which is the default in Gaia, is always 200 feet up or down. And then the thin lines, there'll be five spaces. So each space corresponds to 40 feet in elevation gain. And so what you can use this for, and you know, this is before the internet and when paper maps were the thing and whatnot, you can actually read these lines and tell, you know, how fast the elevation is changing. Are you on the side of a hill? And these will be very close to each other, and I'll show you that when we get to the live application. Or are you in an open meadow? And you can tell that from the elevation contours. So I find this a very, very useful. If I'm on a hike, Gaia will actually tell you on your hike, you know, you're going to gain 1,000 feet in elevation, etc. But you can use this kind of in a two-dimensional way to also see the contours of the land that's around you. All right. And then generating the itinerary. So when I think of planning a trip, and I just finished a 23-day road trip, and I've got a 30-day road trip coming up in another month or so. This is Eric's method of planning. I don't do a detailed itinerary for a 23-day road trip. I don't say that day one, location X, we're going to go to sunrise. Day two, location X, we're going to go to sunset. I think about the trip in terms of locations, and then I think about a shot list or a shopping list, if you will, for each location. And so this is the actual itinerary that I have in Apple Notes for my spring 2024 trip that we just executed. We left on the 16th of March. We returned on the 7th of April. We went to Alamosa. We spent 2 nights in Alamosa before going to Taos and spending 4 nights in Taos. And the reason I don't put a lot of energy into a detailed, minute by minute itinerary is because you never know what's going to happen. So what happened on the 14th and 15th of March, right? It snowed. And it snowed to beat the band in Denver. Well, by the time we got to Alamosa on the 16th, which was that Saturday, it was still snowing in Alamosa when we got there. And we pretty much had a lot of moisture and a lot of clouds. Now, I find that to be awesome for taking photos, and it went right into what I was hoping to achieve as we were in the San Luis Valley taking pictures. But if I would have planned a detailed itinerary, I would have been disappointed. So we got to the area, we knew we had 2 days, you know, an afternoon before, a full day while we were there, maybe the morning on our way out of town. I had 5 or 6 things that I wanted to photograph, and then I made my plans that morning for which order we were going to do things in. And so I try to be super flexible for doing that. Same thing happened when we went to Taos and as we progressed on through the trip. So one of the things that I do is I'll do the itinerary. And if you notice that in gold, these are all the hotels that we stayed in. But I also have in Gaia GPS, and I'm going to show you how this gets done, but I have all the locations that I want to be noted as waypoints on my map. So I know where I want to end up to take pictures. And this happens to represent the drive between Alamosa and Taos, and places that we could stop on the way to take pictures and take images there. So I use a combination of notes for things we want to do. I will also note things like drive time. So we went from Durango to Cortez, and it's about an hour on the road to do that, which means I have more time to pull over versus, you know, do I have to spend 5 or 6 hours driving? Well, I'm probably not going to take a lot of pictures that day, so I don't really plan anything on the way. But I don't think I've ever been on a trip where I haven't had to do changes, if you will, into what I thought the shot order was. Last spring, our spring trip, we ended up in Flagstaff. I knew I wanted to photograph the Grand Canyon, a place called Sunset Crater National Monument, which is just outside of Flagstaff. And then there were some pueblos and places on the Navajo Nation that I wanted to get to. And the Grand Canyon was my priority. But just as we left Phoenix, a cold front came through. And that cold front brought blue skies, right? Which my term for that is blue sky hell. Because a photograph, especially in the middle of the day with a blue sky, doesn't make a good photograph. And so we quickly changed the order in which we did things in Flagstaff to put the Grand Canyon as the last versus the first thing, hoping that the high pressure dome would shift and we would have clouds in the sky. And I didn't get a lot by the time we got to the Grand Canyon, but I got a few. So one of the cautions I say is, you know, don't get locked into your inventory or into itinerary. And then one more before we get to the demo. So you can quickly get yourself outside of cell range, and I quickly find myself in places where I don't have communications anymore. So I'm not going to delve into this too much, but it is well within reach to purchase satellite phone technology or satellite communication technology. This is actually not a phone. This is a text messaging device. And I think if you wait around long enough, I got mine for like $199 one-time fee for the device, and I pay about $150 a year for the service and a couple extra things like Rescue Me insurance. But I can basically hit that button on this device that says SOS, and that's pretty much like calling 911 anywhere on the planet. Now, they're going to charge you if they need to come get you. But you know, I'd rather be in debt than you know, dying on the side of a mountain or whatever. And you don't have to be in the mountains, right? You can be on the Eastern Plains, and there's plenty of places where you cannot get a cell signal. So if you want more information about this, I'm happy to talk to anybody about this and kind of give you some details. Knock on wood, I have never had to press the SOS button. But of all the things, we just did a 60-mile off-road drive on our last trip, and they pretty much said as we entered that area, you need to be ready for self-rescue, and if your car breaks down or whatever, it might be days before somebody comes and finds you. So I just wanted to put this in. It's not out of the realm of possibility to have a satellite phone or satellite communication device. And this happens to be Spot, which is uses the Globalstar satellites. Garmin sells InReach, which uses a different satellite system, but they're all pretty much the same. It uses Iridium as well. Okay, any questions before I jump into the demo? Okay, let's rock and roll on this. So I'm going to bring up Google Earth. I hope people have seen this before. What it does and what Google has built is an application that amalgamates satellite imagery from a variety of sources. And you can go in the search bar and you can say things like Denver, Colorado, for instance, and hopefully it finds Denver, and it zooms you right into Denver, Colorado, and hopefully, right, so this is Denver, and I'm looking at this. This is what Denver looks like if you are 33 miles above it, looking down at the city. But what I can do, and hopefully this doesn't make people queasy, right, I can zoom all the way in, and I can see cars on the roads, I can see buildings, I can see, mapping features, etc. From doing this. It's not military grade technology. I'm not going to read a license plate off any of these vehicles, but it will give you context about where you're going. And then you can click on your mouse and move right or left, up or down. You can zoom in and out, right? To see things. And this application will do like 1,000 things, and I'm going to show you like 3. So there is a lot of capability and power in this. If you haven't used this, you can spend hours playing with this. Okay,
Eric?
so what I'm going to do is take you
Eric?
to a couple locations. Yes.
There was a question.
Yep.
Just a quickie. So when you say in context, you mean in real time?
You mean, am I looking at real time right now? Is that the question?
When you look on that map, it's what's happening there,
No.
right? At the time that you're looking?
No. No. And matter of fact, if you go to the bottom, it's probably hard to see on Zoom. But the image that I'm looking at right now was taken the 25th of June, 2023. So this happened 10 months ago.
Okay, thank you.
And what you're getting is kind of the latest best available. And it may be that if you're in certain locations that are not interesting, the imagery may be several years old. So yeah, great question, and you got to take this with a grain of salt. But I'm going to take you to Lake City, Colorado. And so I go in the search bar and I said, no, hold on. Search. Okay. Take you to Lake City. And so I'll use Google Earth, right? So Lake City is a mountain town in the San Juan Mountains, Southwest Colorado. I'm looking at it, and this imagery was taken in October 16th, 2022 as an example. So this is a little older. But I can zoom in, right? And I can see, well, here's Main Street, Colorado 149. I can see the Lake Fork of the Gunnison River is over here. I can see that there's a memorial park. I can see that there's a footbridge, etc. Right? So if I wanted to take a picture of that river, I can kind of zoom in and I can say, well, you know, there's a good chance that if I drive down 2nd Street, there might be a place to get a picture of this river, for example, right? I was in Lake City or planned to visit Lake City in the fall of 2022. And so when I was looking at this, I was looking for interesting things to take pictures of in Lake City. And what I did is I panned around a little bit, and it turns out that there's this Lake San Cristobal. And turn this off for 1 second. And so I thought, oh, that might be interesting. I got a lake, I got some mountains, I can probably take a picture. So I zoom in a little bit, I pan around, and I'm thinking, where would I want to take this picture? Well, I could see that there's some roads around the lake. I could see that there's this Colorado 149 that kind of rises on the mountain above the lake. Aha, maybe I'm onto something, right? Now, my challenge is as I'm exploring a place, if I've never been there before, I don't know where to pull over. I don't know where the viewpoints are. I don't know this stuff, but I can see it through this application and I can start to get smart. So it turns out I'm looking at this Colorado 149. I zoom in, I look at that road, and lo and behold, there's like no place to pull over except right there. And I don't know about you, but if I'm on a mountain twisty road and I'm trying to find a viewpoint and I'm trying to drive and I got somebody behind me, I really don't want to be that guy trying to go 10 miles an hour and pull over at every place, and maybe it's not safe for me to pull over or whatever. But right now I have a tool that allows me to go to these places, to see locations, and what I've identified is a place where I could potentially pull over my car in a very safe manner and park it and look and maybe get a potential picture. Now, what's cool about this is I zoom in and I can go to kind of the street view. And I see which one I got here. If I got, yeah. So I got one with a guy in it. And I'm going to switch to another one, but you can see already that I'm able to see that lake from this vantage point. Now I'm going to see if I can actually I gotta move this window over there. I'm going to exit street view. There's a little trail, and I think if I click here, I get a better view. Yeah, okay, so there's a little like 100-foot trail off the parking location, and again, what I'm getting is an image of a place where I can stand, I can see the lake, and I can see mountains. And I'm thinking, bingo, right? I now know that it's valuable potentially for me to stop my car, get out at this location, and there might be an image to be taken here. And I've done 10 minutes worth of work, and I haven't left my house. From here. Now, so this is what it looks like in Google Earth, and this is what it looks like when I got there. So this was the image that I took when I was there that day.
Nice.
Right? And it's not an award-winning image because the beetle kill has, you know, done a number on these things. But if you look at this image versus this image, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yep.
In terms of predicting what you're going to do when you get there. So what I end up doing, and by the way, there's a couple other things inside Google Earth. So I don't know if it's coming through on the resolution with Zoom, but there's these dots, these kind of blue blackish dots, and these are people who have also been there. You can upload photos and tag them to a location, and this used to be a big thing. Evidently still is, but you can see shots that other people got while they were at that location. Right? So this can start to help you identify some things. Now, one of the powerful features of the application is you can, and I'm gonna, sorry, spin you around real quick, is you can put push pins in here, right? So I clicked on the push pin, I could put a place mark, and I could name the place mark, and that gets stored in a kind of a file system over here. So I can now put a push pin in here, and I can say, that's a place I might want to go to. And I could start to record that. And I probably have all across the United States, maybe 500 push pins now inside Google Earth of places that I think would turn out to be a great place to go take a picture. And it's all stored and kind of organized. I'm going to cancel this one because I already have this one push pin. I already have this place, and it's named Lake City San Cristobal. And what's going to be important is a push pin inside Google Earth will translate into a waypoint inside Gaia. So I'm going to come back to this example once I get out of Google Earth, but I'm going to take you to a couple other locations inside Google Earth. But this is the kind of exploration you can do. So I'm going to take you to another place. How many people have been to Sugar City, Colorado?
Nope.
So we did a little trip from Pueblo to La Junta, and that's Colorado 96. And many of you know that I take pictures of grain silos on the Eastern Plains. And so as I was going down 96, I found one grain silo. This is, kind of what they look like satellite view in Sugar City. And Sugar City didn't smell like sugar the day we were there because there's a feed lot about 2 miles west of the city, and it had the kind of opposite smell. But so here's an example, and what I know is here's Colorado 96. But I know that here's a silo. I can see that there's a road next to the silo. I know I have access. If I click on this road, I can go back to Street View. I can turn around, and there's my silo. Sometimes you'll see the blur because the street view is generated because Google's driving cars around taking pictures. And so sometimes they'll pass a car or a human and then they'll blur them out. But you can drive down the road a little bit, change your angles. And so this is what it looks like in Google Earth Street View. And this was the picture that I took when I got there. I happened to go on a day that it was snowing.
Cool.
Okay, so if I pull out here, roll back, right? What else do I know? Well, if I zoom in a little bit, I can see that this kind of looks like Main Street. Whether you probably can't read it, but it's telling me that the post office is there, the town hall is here, the volunteer fire department is there. I can start to think, well, hey, this is a pretty decent place to park my car, right? And I can see that there's parking spots here. So I can probably park here and I can walk the block and go back here and take my picture, right? So it's not just about the thing you want, but it's also about, hey, is there a safe place to park my car? Oh, and by the way, Lynette's Sugar City Cafe happens to be here, so I can get a cup of coffee while I'm there. Right, a lot of power by using this. So I'm going to quickly take you to another place. This time we're going to go to Utah. I was just here about a week ago. This is called Moon Overlook. This is in the middle of, this is not on a street. This is in the middle of nowhere. Utah, outside of Hanksville. And the cool part out here is, see if I can hit the right point. Oh, there you go. So this is the kind of view you get from Moon Overlook. Now, these views don't exist all over the place, but in the more popular places, or if you're on a defined road, street view will work. But this is, I call it the prettiest dirt on earth. And if I find this is the picture I took from Moon Overlook. And again, I can kind of make a decision whether I want to be there. Now, the cool part about this one is if I turn around,
Anything nice?
I count 1, 2, 3, 4 photographers that were caught in this image as this was taken.
5
Other people who happened to be here.
Oh,
down there.
Okay, and if you're off-road, right? So what you can do here is you can say, well, do I really want to drive out here? Because maybe I'm not really all that thrilled about going into the dirt. Well, this is the road you can kind of see here. It's a little faint because the sand out there is light, but this is not really a bad road to drive on. You're certainly not on the edge of a cliff. You're not on the edge of a mountain. You're not rock crawling, etc. And you can tell, and you can walk this road back until you get back here to Utah 24, and so you can kind of see how far you would have to drive and things like that. Right, so a lot of stuff you can learn here. And then the last place I'll take you is completely on the other side of the earth, kind of, and this is Paris. It's in France. And I'm in the Trocadero. If anybody's been to Paris before, this is one of the famous places to take a picture of the Eiffel Tower. And this is street view and imagery, and of course this is a very famous place, so there's a ton of shots of this place. And if I pull back, this is another example of sight lines. So this is the Trocadero, River Seine. This is the Eiffel Tower on Champs de Mars. And one of the places to take the picture of the Eiffel Tower is from Trocadero. And you've seen images of this platform in Trocadero. Usually, like the wedding photographers try to get there early in the morning, late in the afternoon when people aren't there, and then they'll get the wedding couple or I think there's a picture of Fred Astaire dancing up here or something. But you can, is this a place I want to visit? Well, yes, it is, if you go to Paris, right? And this is one of the places to get the photographs. So if you go to Paris and you go to the Trocadero, this is my image. These are the Trocadero fountains that I'm taking a picture through, and it almost looks like a cannon shooting the water, and then the Eiffel Tower. So this was taken from that location. But the other thing you can do, just to kind of point out some things, right? I just love this tool because this is Paris. This is the first arrondissement, the center part of Paris, the part if you're a tourist you're going to go to. The Louvre is here. If you can see where my cursor is, Museum du Louvre. The Notre Dame is down here. This is the Champs-Élysées, right? This is the French Palace, their version of the White House. The U.S. Embassy is right next to it. You've got Champs de Mars, which is the park where the Eiffel Tower is. And you can get a real sense of, you can walk from the Louvre through the gardens, down the Champs, take a left, go over the Trocadero, and then come back through the Hotel de Invalides, and I'm butchering the French, so I know that. But there's this whole area is like 1,000,001 photographs, if you want to go to Paris and take pictures. But through this tool, I can now get a sense of where are things and what things do I want to take pictures of. And I can combine this with PhotoPills or TPE or another tool to show you, like, do you want to take the Eiffel Tower at sunset or sunrise or whatever, and you can start to make that, get yourself smart on that. Okay, any questions before I jump out of this, and then I'll jump into Gaia real quick. No, okay. So I'm going to show you the web version of Gaia. Put this away. I'm supposed to have it on. So Gaia is a mapping application. And in the default view, what you get is something that looks like a roadmap, right? And I'm showing you this on the web, but again, you would see this and you could have access to this on your phone. And Gaia is very powerful from a mapping perspective. You can get all sorts of layers on your map. If you go for the free version, you don't get anything with the green premium. I pay extra, so I get the premium service. But you can build custom maps. Now, I tend not to do this too much in terms of like special layers, but this application is used by the wildland firefighters and oil, people out mining or looking for oil and things like that. I mean, it has a lot of industry uses. But one thing that I think is really interesting, just to give you a quick example of maybe things that are unexpected, is public land records are all public in the United States. So if I zoom in, I can tell you that this house, which I hope nobody lives at, is owned by John M. Allen. And this piece of property is owned by Gregory Rudolph. So this is the kind, I mean, there's a ton of capability and information in here. I love this because I won't cross property boundaries. And so this will tell me whether I'm on private property or public property. And if I need to do the research, like who do I talk to if I want to enter a piece of property, it's available as one of the layers in the map. So just a tremendous amount of power here. So so I talked to you about push pins in Google Earth. Well, it turns out that if you take those push pins, you can export them and then import out of Google Earth and then import them into Gaia GPS. And so what that looks like is all of these places are things that I've found in the state of Colorado and that I have researched or been at or looked at to take pictures of. And so as an example, I'm going to take you back to Lake City real quick. Here's that crook in the road, that push pin I exported and re-imported. And why this becomes important is Gaia GPS will do real-time tracking of you as you're driving. So literally, as I'm driving up this mountain road, I found this place, which I know it should be safe for me to pull the car over. And what it tells me is, as I'm driving, I have this up on my phone, I have this up on my Apple CarPlay, and I can see as I'm driving that a waypoint is coming up, and that tells me that there's a potential place to stop. And what it stops me from doing is trying to do three things at once. It allows me to drive my car with confidence and not be looking for any pullover any instant, and focus on the ones that I've pre-identified, right? And that lowers my stress level as I'm trying to find places, potential places to take pictures. One of the things that I use this for is I track all of my explorations. So not only do I have push pins on places that I think are interesting to take pictures, but inside Gaia, these are called waypoints, and I can turn those on and I can turn those off. And then I have tracks. And tracks are places that I've been. And so that's these colored lines, right? So these are places that I've either driven or hiked. And if I zoom out just a little bit, sometimes the resolution doesn't work. Okay, but this is from here to here to here to here is the state of Colorado. So these are all the places that I've been in the state of Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico in the last 4 years. In terms of searching, finding, here's a good example. This is the San Luis Valley. This is the Great Sand Dunes. Here's Taos, New Mexico, for instance, right? So I've driven down all of these roads. I've found things to photograph on these roads using Google Earth basic research. And then I track them, or I track where I've been. So I know, do I want to go back? Do I not want to go back? And if I turn the waypoints on, some places I have pins, some places, like if you kind of go over here, these are places that maybe I'll get to, maybe I won't. Here's a good example. We were just in Hanksville last week, and this was a whole new area for me. I identified one, probably 10 push pins of locations and overlooks to get to, and we got to 4 of these and got some awesome imagery, which I'll show you a picture from one of them. But I will not only use them to identify like a place to take a photograph, but oftentimes, this is Utah 95. This is a dirt road off of Utah 95. There is no big billboard sign that says turn here. Oftentimes that sign is minuscule on the side of the road, if it exists at all. So I'll put a push pin on here or a waypoint. So as I'm driving down here, I know, hey, the place to take the turn to get on the dirt road is right at this location. So I'll use it as that. And again, it's a real-time kind of tool that helps me execute and find these locations and do the planning for this.
What are the different colors? Do they mean? I'm sure they mean something.
So the colors on the routes don't. This is every time you start a new route, it just gives you a random color. You can choose a color if you wanted to. I just have it set to random.
Okay.
But you can go into the push to the waypoints, and you can actually edit them, and then you can add text to them and do some things. So you could do some interesting stuff depending on how much energy you want to put in. One of the other neat features you can do, I haven't tried this on an Android, but I've done this on an Apple device, and I did this one just as an example for this presentation. We were at a place called Sand Canyon. We had been driving all day, decided we wanted to do a hike. So this is my wife and I doing a 3-4 mile hike. But you can take pictures with your smartphone through the Gaia app, and then it will geo-coordinate where those pictures are. And if I click on them, this is the image that I took at that location. So you can not only, like, as you're exploring, maybe you're not there at the best time of the day, or the weather's lousy or whatever, but you can take a picture to know whether you want to come back. So this is another feature that the app has within it. I can't really blow this up on the web version, but if I'm in the phone and I click on it, it's going to take me right into my Apple Photos, and it'll show me the full photo there. So that's another feature. And what I did is as we did this hiking loop here, you know, I just took pictures along the way of what the trail looked like and what I was seeing on the trail. So this is another map. Okay, I'm gonna stop there and answer questions if you have any.
Did you say that this map will appear in your car on Apple Play
Yes, sir.
while you're driving, so it'd be on your dash?
Yes, sir.
Huh.
Does Apple Play, can you just bring in an iPad to have it work, or does it have to be built into your car?
No, so I used this for many years in my truck, and my truck definitely did not have Apple Play or whatever in there. So I just used the phone. And some of the people who overland a lot will actually, you know, they'll buy like an iPad Air or something like that because it has a little bit bigger screen than maybe your phone does. But yeah, on my truck, I had a gooseneck mount for my phone, and so literally hands on the wheel, and then, you know, right where my right hand would be, kind of, I had my phone and I could just quickly glance over at it and watch it track me real time.
Cool, thank you.
Absolutely.
Eric, just apropos of probably nothing, when you take Google Maps to my neighborhood, I'm there and I'm waving at you.
Oh, okay.
We were there, out on our patio with family guests when the thing went by. So,
Did you give Google the one finger salute, or did you give them a friendly wave?
we waved.
Okay.
Nicely.
So just to kind of, you know, summarize, right? This is a tremendous. By the way, we did a trip down Route 66 18 months ago, and so that's why there's a bunch of push pins. And I'm already. No, I haven't brought them. They're in Google Earth still. I'm planning a trip up into the Pacific Northwest, so I have a bunch of push pins over in the Pacific Northwest already. But you know, both of these tools are effectively free. And so just to wrap this up, right? There's so much information available and capability available to you to find locations, whether it's PhotoPills or Google Earth or, you know, a tool like Gaia. You really can start to, you know, even transport yourself there before you make the commitment and are doing your planning. And so this is what I was pulling out of, you know, a lot of people, if you've been someplace with me and somebody says, hey, I really want to go to the sand dunes or whatever, and I'm going to say, well, you know what, here, I was at the sand dunes. Look, here's the road you want to drive down. Oh, and you want a different view of the sand dunes? You got to go down this place called Castle Creek. Oh, but wait a minute, this last green section here, boy, you better have four-wheel drive, right? This is domain knowledge. This is, you know, you don't want to be driving your family sedan down here. But if you got a nice SUV, you can get there. If not, you're gonna stop here or stop there or whatever. Tremendous amount of information available to you. Okay. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, concerns?
When do you sleep?
Yeah.
I wonder if we can gather the domain knowledge from our photo group. Because, you know, I lived in Ridgeway for 12 years and have a lot of domain knowledge of the San Juan Mountains and that whole area. But
Absolutely. And you know,
Yeah.
you bring up a good point, Rena. One of the things that was funny, I was watching a YouTube video about a guy in Europe who was taking architecture pictures, and he was going to cities and trying to take pictures of the architecture. And he was talking to a camera club, and the camera club guys, wow, you always get the best shots. You know, how do you know where to go? And what the guy said was his trick is he finds the local camera club.
Hmm.
And he just
Ah.
calls the local camera club up. He says, because they know where to go take a picture at. And I thought, huh, I've never tried that. That's interesting. I'll have to add that to my bag of tricks, right?
And sometimes you don't want to share all that with everybody.
Mm.
And that's the good and the bad of it.
Right.
Because where you know, I used to go and be by myself. I go now and there's 1,000 photographers standing there. So
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
Eric,
sure we all have those thoughts of places.
Yep.
Eric, this was great tonight. I've had photo
Yeah.
pills for at least a couple of years and took a look at it and decided it was too complicated, and I'm going to go back and master it.
Yeah.
Same.
Same here.
Yeah, I'll just throw in that I have used the TPE, and I found it to be spot on whenever I've tried it. It's just dead accurate.
Yeah. So one caution that I'll give you with both of Google Earth and Gaia is about 95% accurate. I have been places where it's telling me that there's a road, but the farmer has plowed over it, or the road doesn't exist. And I've also seen on Gaia where there was a road through the mountain that I kind of was like, really? And then I've gone back in Google Earth to look at imagery of the same location, and what is marked as a yellow road is a 2-track that you really don't want to be on. But I found it to be probably north of 95% accurate. It can be less accurate when you're in the middle of nowhere. So what I tell people is this is not the gospel, right? But it gives you such a leg up to know and to decide whether you want to go someplace or not. And it works just as well in the city as it does. This is not something, if you're thinking about, well, that's because Eric likes to go into the backwoods or whatever. No. This will work in downtown Denver. I track all of my walks through downtown Denver in Gaia GPS.